Now we're going to break down a little bit more what a multi-unit franchise opportunity looks like. Again, it's, as the name implies, multi-unit, meaning you have the opportunity to open up 2 or more single-unit franchises in most cases. They wouldn't necessarily all be adjacent, however. In the territory definition here, the same rules would apply in terms of some sort of a radius around a franchise or a definition of a single unit by population or by zip code or however the franchisor might define what a single unit territory is. You would obviously open up multiple units that would each have that territory definition, although again, the locations that you might select or the territories that they might award you may or may not be next to each other. They may be one franchise location on one side of town. You might have 2 or 3 in another part of town. The strategy, though, would be to be able to open and operate multiple locations under the same brand so that you could get the benefit of the economies of scale that can come from being able to have a staff of people who are trained that you can move from location to location and they can cover different things, where you might have one main administrative support system that could support all of the locations, and it would reduce the actual cost per location for operational purposes. You might get the economies of scale of buying advertising cheaper and those types of things, or even some wholesale products may be a little bit cheaper. So having multiple locations certainly is an advantage over having one location, provided you have the financing available to be able to open and operate multiple locations, and you have the management skills to do so. Now, when it comes to the ownership participation, it's obvious that if you have 5 locations, you're not going to run all of them. You're going to have probably a manager in each location, or at least a team leader in each territory or location that would run the day-to-day operations. Your job would be to manage the managers, where you would oversee the operations of all of the locations. And you would also have the opportunity to kind of, hedge your bet a little bit, because let's say you open up 3 or 4 locations and one of them doesn't perform very well. You have 4 other locations that maybe do perform well. They're going to make up the difference, so you end up spreading your risk a little bit by having multiple locations. So that's one advantage. As far as the franchisors are concerned, they would rather have more multi-unit operators than single-unit operators, simply because it helps them from a management standpoint and support system standpoint to support fewer franchisees that have multiple units. And each person that opens up multiple units generally has more experience on how to operate, and it allows the franchisors to leverage their system better by having less people to focus on and support, but more locations can be opened that way. So that's one reason franchisors like that. In fact, you're going to find there's some franchisors who require you, in order to become a franchisee, to commit to opening up multiple units. There's many of them that will require you open up what they call a 3-pack, which is 3 single-unit franchises that you have to open over a certain predetermined period of time. It could be 1 location the first year, 2nd location the next year, and then the 3rd location the next year. So you would be committing to open up a number of locations or territories within a certain given period of time. So some franchise companies require that. That's something you have to look at before you would get involved, to know what each specific franchisor offers, what their requirements are. From an investment level, it's really taking the individual franchise that we talked about earlier, the single unit franchise cost range, and then multiplying it by the number of franchises that you're going to open. Now, you're probably going to find that some franchisors are going to incentivize people to open multiple locations, and what they'll probably do is offer discounts for each franchise that you open after your first one. So you would commit to, let's say, 3 or 5 franchises that you want to open over a 3 to 5 year period. You would probably pay $30,000, let's say, for one franchise that might have a franchise fee for a single unit of $30,000. You'd buy the one franchise at $30,000. The second franchise fee might be $25,000 or $20,000, and then maybe the 3rd, 4th, and 5th might be at a $15,000 amount. So you have a lower cost per franchise after you get open, after you get going. And then some of those franchise fees might be deferred, meaning you'd pay part of the franchise fees in advance, and then you'd pay the balance when you're actually going to open up the location. So again, each franchisor, that's part of the thing you would need to evaluate. How do they charge? When do you have to pay? What incentives do they give you to want to go out and become a multi-unit operator? So that's a good way to expand a brand and to improve your opportunities to grow your own net worth.